In terms of things that haven't been well received, we've got the first full trailer for The Acolyte that just came out a few days ago.
Ooh,
So, for context, it's currently got, what do we have here? 5.8 million views, the 68,000 upvotes, and 135,000 downvotes on YouTube. That is a horrendous
They gotta
ratio.
be scared, don't they? They gotta be real scared about the
Well,
future
come
of
on.
Star Wars, huh?
They couldn't have known that this was going to. They couldn't have expected that this was going to be well received, considering the horrendous track record that they've had with Disney Plus Star Wars shows. The producer of this show, the showrunner, Leslie Headland, not a particularly popular figure amongst the fan base, and everything that they've told us about what this show is going to be and what it represents, not exactly endearing it to people. I will say, like, having watched this trailer, they have gone all out with the production on this. Just like the action sequences and stuff, they've done everything they can to make it look as cool as possible. I don't think it's going to help necessarily.
And yet it doesn't look cool at all. It looks lame.
No, but like I guess what I'm saying is, like, compared to something like Obi-Wan Kenobi that looked like it was done on a soundstage with a budget of $500, this looks like it's had a lot of money spent on it, just probably not in a wise way.
I just think they should have renamed it. It should have been like The Rise of the TikTok Jedi. I mean, there's something about it I just don't like.
I'm gonna mute it because they usually hit you for copyright if you use the music. But I'm just trying to call up a sequence that kind of demonstrates it. Bear with me a second.
From the truth.
Yeah.
The truth. I think Star Wars can only make money now unless they get rid of the management in porn. That there's nothing left for them to do.
Yeah, like the visuals look okay. Like I say, I can tell that they spent quite a bit of money on this one.
Well, the thing is an impression that I got, I don't know what it was. There's like, it's so hard to pin down, but there's just like a way that the Disney Star Wars shows look, with the exception of Andor, that just comes across as like, man, none of this feels real in like a very strange sense. I don't feel like I'm in real places or real worlds. It feels like it's characters, actors walking around on set performing a bad script. I don't know what it is. It's like very hard for me to look at these things and like get absorbed as though this is a real place with real people living their lives.
I think the no sense of place is a really important one there, because I remember that the first look we had at the Acolyte as well, which is like, it's supposed to be set back, way before even the prequels, and then you look at all of the background characters, you look at the costume design, and there's nothing that really gives you any sense of history about them. Like, it very much is, this is the set we're on, and so this is the drawer of costumes we have to use. They're not particularly worn or weathered. They don't particularly speak to the type of place they seem to be living in. Whereas, if there's one thing to be said for pretty much all of original Star Wars and even the prequels, everywhere you go and every person who is there is immediately recognizable as going sort of, well, with the maybe exception of the Gungans, but, parking them. Everyone else clearly belongs where they are, and everything feels like it's been there for a long time. Whereas with stuff like this, I always just get the sense, it sprung to life 5 minutes ago because the camera arrived.
Yeah. I'm trying to capture this, like, because the fucking that looks
that's her wife, isn't it? Is that the wife, Leslie Headland's wife?
I don't know.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah, because her wife is his wife. Sorry, her wife is in one of these, is playing one of the roles, one of the main roles.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I just wish that, like you just pointed out, why is it that Star Wars fashions don't change?
Yeah.
Like, there's no, you don't have an idea, like, why are the Jedi, it's always been strange to me that all the Jedi are dressed like Ben Kenobi was in Star Wars, because
I mean, the Jedi,
whatever happened, what happened to Luke's
the Jedi?
But what his black outfit, when Luke has the black outfit he had in Jedi, it's like Ben Kenobi was dressed that way because he lives in the desert.
I mean, the Jedi I can get behind because they're like warrior monks, so I can imagine that they've got just basic functional robes that aren't about fashion and they're not like flamboyant or anything. So that's okay. Luke, like in the original trilogy, like Luke wasn't an official Jedi. He was very much a guy who was aspiring to become a Jedi. So like he wore clothes based on, his circumstances. So again, I think that works okay. But yeah, like with shows like this, like TV shows like this are a chance for you to show the cultures of different places, get a feel for like how things are done, how people dress and stuff. And it's so it follows that same Jedi aesthetic where everyone just wears like bland, colorless robes, like just the most functional, basic things that the wardrobe department could get their hands on. But there's no sense of being somewhere.
But Drinker, wouldn't they do that though? Because you just said the warrior monks. Wouldn't they be the same?
No, that's what I mean though. But I'm not just talking about Jedi. I just mean just general characters. Like none of them have a fashion. There's not a sense of like particular style for each planet or whatever. There's no sense that these are unique cultures. They're just this weird homogeny of really nothingness. I think Andor is probably the only one that touched upon things like that, where like they're context-specific clothes.
Well, yeah, Andor very much creates a sense of place with all of the planets that you go to, like to the in the sense that you could speak to a distinctive culture and a way of life and a sense of how does a regular person exist in this particular world. Whereas in this case here, I don't know what it is. It's like it's so weird to see so much money leveraged in service of something that comes across as so soulless. It's so weird how this much money can be put into something that I don't get it. Like, how does so much money get poured into a project that already before it's out, it just seems like it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be bad, it's going to fail, and nobody's going to care about it or remember it. Like, did it only exist to be like, well, hopefully people stay subscribed to Disney Plus for the next 2 months, you know?
Pretty
like,
much.
That's kind of the only purpose it serves.
But I think that's one of the problems.
Even like Andor is a really good example, I think, of the folly of even trying this as a strategy. Because even if you do turn around something which is actually really good, as Andor is, it on its own is not going to rekindle the kind of love that you need to make this Disney Plus Star Wars universe actually profitable anyway. The only way you can do that is by doing a good feature film. The Mandalorian Season 3 has the budget of a big budget by a feature film standard, and yet it all goes on, Mando Season 3 or the Book of Boba Fett. And the stupid scooters talking about people not, wearing or driving things that belong in any kind of place. Even if this turns out to be really good, and I doubt that it will, but maybe it will. Let's say this turns out to surprise us, and it's actually really well written. It's still not going to do much because it's the kind of thing you profit on the film universe from. You can't really generate too much interest in your Disney Plus shows, I don't think.
Well, because you have to think about it, Platoon. All of their Disney Plus Star Wars shows, from The Mandalorian till, except for the Acolyte, up until now, where you have Obi-Wan, where you have the Book of Boba Fett, and Andor, have cost $1.8 billion to produce 1.8 billion, all of those shows together.
Well, I saw a great breakdown of the box office revenue generated by all of Star Wars since Disney acquired them, and apparently Lucasfilm have still not actually made back their purchase price.
No, they haven't. Yeah, they haven't.
Especially with
Disney,
all the costs.
Disney haven't made a penny off of them, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, but they tried to tell all their shareholders, I think it was in the last quarterly meeting, they tried to tell them all, when you had the Peltz who was fighting Iger and wanted to replace the 2 members on the board, they were trying to say, hey, look, we made money. But when you read the fine print in the shareholder agreement, it's like, well, these are based on 10-year projections going forward. And
there was also a thing where they didn't include the cost price of purchasing Lucasfilm to begin with in their financial accounts. It's like, well, so no, you can't tell me it's made money if you didn't tell me how much it cost. That's just
it's like a business just taking their gross profit and being like, so that's how much we made this year. It's like, yeah, but how much did you spend to make that money? That's not important.
That age-old point that comes back again and again and again. It's like, they did make money somewhat. And you're like, no. You don't understand. Any money they did make was a fraction of the universe where they treated Star Wars even with a remote ounce of respect. The amount of money they could have made would have been incredible. And what they've done, you need someone to do that on a fucking board meeting to be like, do you know what they've done? Do you understand? And then they go, well, that guy said we made a bunch of money. It's like, no.
Imagine if The Last Jedi had made twice as much money as The Force Awakens, as opposed to less money than The Force Awakens, and then The Rise of Skywalker had made twice as much again, as opposed to about half as much. And it's just it's because you're disrespecting the franchise. You're not telling stories people want to see. You're destroying characters people really love. And even that's another of the bad signs, I think, for the Acolyte is that well, I think one of the lines from the previous trailer or the first look thing was like, it's not about good and evil, it's about power and who has the right to use it, or something like that, I think, which is another, it's another of those, okay, we're doing the morally gray political intrigue thing that everybody remembers, that's definitely Star Wars, as opposed to rekindling people's love and admiration for, I don't know, the Jedi, or exploring a part of the galaxy where there are no Jedi. I don't think people are really necessarily crying out for another sort of cynical political machinations of moral gray areas. I think we've had a lot of that.
Too much of it. I mean, I think how Robert was saying earlier, how a lot of these writers and teams are repeating like what they saw from Buffy and Angel. I think a lot also are stuck in the era of The Dark Knight Returns from Frank Miller. Like, I thought that was great when it came out, a seminal work. But then everybody has wanted to go this dark, morally gray, or do whatever it takes. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's just reach the goal. I don't know. I think we need events back. Maybe if Disney stopped making a Star Wars show releasing a couple, 2 or 3 a year, and then start focusing on
good sense, right? I mean, because the other, I keep saying the other as though there aren't about a billion reasons to be concerned about the Acolyte. Another of the ways in which this could go very terribly wrong is that if you start introducing, you don't even have to call them the Sith, but you reintroduce the Sith into the galaxy at the point before the prequels, it's going to be very difficult to come out at the end of this show without having made the Jedi in the prequels seem way more incompetent than they already did, which was already significantly, because they've missed a bunch of incredibly obvious clues that they should have picked up on, which would have forearmed them against Palpatine's plan to begin with. So, like, that's the risk with prequels, is always that you do damage to the things that are canonically set after them. And I think I have a feeling this will do something like that.
Well, we'll look at what it made. Didn't last weekend Phantom Menace come in at 8.5 or like $9 million? It came in second place either way after 25 years. So there's still love for the films. It's just
I love this. I can't get over this guy's helmet that he's wearing here. This really leapt out of me in the trailer as well. It's like Venom has morphed into the Star Wars universe.
Lizard Kylo.
Yeah.
Looks like the guy from Ahsoka.
What's going to look scary? Let's paint his helmet red and put his teeth on it. Like, yeah, sure. Okay, that'll do.
Also, are his eyes on his chin or something? Because I can't see any eye slits there. That's just a mouth slit, isn't it?
No, there are. There's two
There's a little slit there for his eyes. But
looks like the man in the iron mask. Yeah,
it's sad how much this still functions. Like, people went nuts over him. It's like, oh my god, and all the lightsabers. People go nuts over just seeing lightsabers. I don't know.
Look at them there. Look, lightsabers doing their thing.
Do you guys all remember the what was the name of that thing in you remember the guy who in Ahsoka who when he got chopped he puffed like all that green smoke? Yeah, the fart guy. He was the same deal where it's like, oh, you look like Dark Souls but Star Wars, and then you're just a fart clown, and that's
there are all these theories about who he might be. Is this going to be? Is it Bendak Starkiller? Is it going to be Maul? Is it Ezra? It's like, no, he's just green gas. And then you read the interviews, and the director's like, even I don't know what it was. They didn't tell me.
Is there a better example of a more overt slap to the audience's face, and that they're just like, oh well, next one. You know, like, next mystery, let's go. That one was nothing. Like the last 10. It's fine. Let's go again.
I can't wait for a bunch of characters to get stabbed by these lightsabers and be totally fine afterwards.
I think win this 100 years before, so maybe the lightsabers will actually do something.
Well, sad reality about Marok, whatever the fuck his name was, it had turned out to have been Ezra, to have been fucking Starkiller if it had been that. Whatever it turned out to be, if it were an actual character rather than a fart cloud, like, it probably would have been worse. And it's annoying we can't get to a point where people understand that. Like, Star Wars is possibly the number one for a series that just jangles those fucking keys. Because, it goes beyond characters, right? Lightsabers are jangling keys.
Yeah.
But what I find sad about all this is that, it's Star Wars is so far up its own ass. I mean, the story they seem to be telling here is the only story Star Wars is now telling, which is the Sith versus the Jedi, the dark side versus the light side. And when you think about the original Star Wars, that was an adjunct to the story that was being told. You at the time you had the Empire and the Rebellion, and with this, somebody said to me that they would like to see like Hamlet set in the Star Wars universe, and you'd have Force ghosts, and I'm like, you know what? That would have more resonance today than anything they're doing, because Lucas was looking at whether he was looking at Kurosawa movies, whether he was looking at the Dam Busters, which was about a very specific incident in World War II that he was inspired by on the attack on the Death Star. Star Wars is only about itself. It doesn't have any larger meaning beyond, and everyone is like you said, key jangling. Okay, but what is any of this? What is the story? How does the story being told resonate with audiences? Now, the original Star Wars, of course, I keep saying this, but Han and Luke are blue collar guys. One's a truck driver, one's a farmer. They're not necessarily particularly extraordinary, and they get caught up in extraordinary events. And Luke represented all of us. All of us were Luke Skywalker watching those twin setting suns on Tatooine to the strains of a French horn and John Williams score. We'd all been there. And what Star Wars was saying, that sometimes ordinary people can be extraordinary, and get caught up in adventures. There was no midi-chlorians. There was no Jedi Knights. It was a farm boy who wanted to get the hell out of that horrible what is worse than moisture farming on a desert planet? Nothing. If there's a bright center of the universe, you're on the planet that it's furthest from. Now, what does Star Wars? I don't relate to any of these characters. They have nothing to say to me. But when I was a 10-year-old watching Luke for the first time, I'm like, I would like to see adventure find me. And could I step up? Could I step up and do what Luke did? I want to go to Mos Eisley and I want to go to Alderaan and become a Jedi like my father. It's funny, that?
Like, I contrast that with like Ahsoka, where I've never seen someone be on an adventure and look so fucking bored and miserable about it.
It's unbelievable. And that was part of the appeal of Star Wars. Whether you identified as Han, whether you identified as Luke, these were ordinary people. And now Star Wars is only about royalty or, the Jedi. And that's not how Star Wars began. And it's so strange to me that that's what we're watching now. I don't relate to a Jedi Knight. Luke becomes a Jedi Knight. Luke became something. Star Wars was about following a path. Whatever path you want to follow. Luke followed a path and achieved something. Whether it was the liberation of the galaxy or a personal transformation, he achieved something. What are these people? They're not on any path. It's all just, let's fight the Sith. I want the Sith to win.
It's interesting about the idea of like how, what do the stories mean? What is like the earnest desire to like express a story that can be meaningful to people and helpful to people in real life? Yeah. It's like Star Wars has flanderized itself to the point that in the minds of Disney, the only thing that Star Wars can be is lightsabers and action scenes and Tatooine, to the point that it's like become inconceivable that you could have a Star Wars story that might be like low stakes. Why wasn't Obi-Wan Kenobi, instead of him going on a galaxy trotting adventure, getting into lightsaber fights with Darth Vader? Why couldn't it just be an introspective, small scale, low stakes story about him like going on some sort of spiritual journey or something like that? Why can't we have a story about, I don't know, like a decommissioned battle droid trying to figure out what the meaning of his life is going to be as he maneuvers through a galaxy that doesn't make sense to him anymore?
That would be interesting. I'd watch that.
I don't know, just small ideas, like small ideas that are trying to like explore an actual theme that might be useful and meaningful to people.
They had it with Finn in the beginning, remember? And then they totally killed that. I mean, that was an interesting storyline.
When you say beginning, you literally mean his first like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the 5 minutes. Exactly. I mean, that was an interesting take. The stormtrooper leaves. I was like, I want to know that. And then that just disappeared.
I think it's what people thought they were getting with The Mandalorian as well, which is, finally this is actually a story that isn't about the Jedi, and it's not about this sort of very, very austere and stoic class of warrior priests who are unrelatable. It's a simple guy trying to make his way in the universe. I kind of want to see what missions he goes on, and then he doesn't. And now we have Mando. But like, I think it's what people thought.
You've essentially just got a lightsaber surrogate in the dark saber. Like you've got the big epic struggle against the resurgent empire. It's just the same crap.